Welcome to Keepers, sponsored by Sprint. It's week 4, which means that bye weeks have started. Man, already? I hate bye weeks. Totally messes with my team's fantasy chemistry. Let's get straight into week 4's starts and sits. Start the Arizona defense against the Dolphins. Reggie Bush's knee is banged up, and this will be Ryan Tannehill's 4th career start. Expect confusion and turnovers. On the flip side, sit Reggie Bush if you can. He wants to play, but that'd be a tough matchup for him even at 100%. I don't see him getting a lot of touches. Start Cedric Benson. He's getting plenty of carries, and the Saints had the worst rushing defense in the league even before Jamal Charles went off for over 200 yards last week. Another Packer I'd start this week is Jermichael Finley. He hasn't scored since week 1, which means he's due for the kind of performance that makes you hold on to him despite the drops and fumbles. And did I mention the Saints suck? When in doubt, exploit that terrible defense. Sit Sean Green. Fantasy owners have hated Green for years, and it looks like he's finally losing his luster with Rex Ryan as well, with Bilal Powell starting to get touches. I wouldn't be surprised if Powell wins the starting job outright in the next couple of weeks. Start Michael Turner. I can't believe I'm saying this because he looked terrible to start the year, but he actually averaged 5.7 yards per carry last week, and he has a favorable matchup at home against a porous Carolina D. Finally, sit Danny Amendola. He's going up against a big, fast Seahawks secondary that blanketed Greg Jennings and Jordy Nelson on Monday Night Football. He'll get some catches, but don't expect a lot of yards. Give him a break unless you've got a PPR league. But before you make these changes, let's do the weekly reality check. I think it's important that I'm held responsible for the advice I give out. And in all honesty, last week I gave out some pretty amazing advice. Handsomely named viewer Matt hit me up on Twitter to say, where do I send the bourbon as gratitude for the Andre Brown suggestion? But seriously, I needed that one. Well, you're welcome, Matt. You can send the bourbon to me, care of SB Nation Studios, 369 West 34th Street, New York, New York, 10001. I like anything that starts with a B. Baker's, Booker's, Bullet, Blanton's, even Buffalo Trace is a nice budget buy. And now, Sprint Unlimited Upside. The fantasy play destined for success this week is the Ravens defense at home against the Browns. Ray Lewis and company had a quiet week against the Patriots, but expect them to bounce back to form against a lousy Cleveland offense. Brandon Weeden has no one to throw to, which is going to make it tough for Trent Richardson to get anything going. Going to be a long day for Browns fans. But then that's true every week, isn't it? Now let's go to Isaac for the weather report.
Matt, 49ers are traveling to New Jersey this Sunday to fight the New York Jets. The Jets are going to lose because it's going to rain. And just as the rain will mask the tears of defeat on the Jet players' faces, it too will mask the sadness upon my soul. Back to you.
Thanks, Isaac. I hope you find your assistant. We're in the home stretch now. Hire and fire. Hire Bilal Powell and fire Chris Johnson. Yes, fire CJ2K. The K is for crappy. Johnson had 29 total yards in an overtime game where his team scored 44 points. He now has just 10.8 fantasy points through 3 games. And a lot of people are saying, well, you can't start him, but you can't cut him either. I say, why the hell not? Cutting him is gonna feel great. It may not be the best strategic move, but you know what? Sometimes in fantasy, catharsis is more important than strategy. As for Powell, as I mentioned earlier, I think he's gonna take Sean Green's job, and sooner rather than later. Get him as a free agent now before he becomes a hot waiver wire pickup. Hire the Cardinals defense and fire the Steelers. I can't believe that the Cards D is only owned in 31% of leagues. Apparently, 69% of fantasy leagues are populated entirely by people who don't look at numbers. This week's game against the Dolphins is the start of a great 4-game stretch that includes matchups at St. Louis and Minnesota. As for the Steelers, they're the 25th ranked fantasy defense in the league, but are almost certainly owned by some moron who favors reputation over results. Don't be stupid. Ditch him. And at quarterback, hire Christian Ponder and fire Michael Vick. Now, I'm not saying to cut Vick, but it's time to trade him for pennies on the dollar before he gets injured or benched. I told you not to draft him, but no, you didn't want to listen to Ufford. As for Ponder, I don't expect him to produce the way he did against the 49ers every week, but he's completed 70% of his passes this year without an interception. Think of him as a budget Alex Smith, worth stashing on your bench until your starter's bye week rolls around. That's it for this week's Keepers, sponsored by Sprint. For more fantasy football advice, check out the Fantasy War Room on SBNation.com. Your outdoor activity of the week? Visit a corn maze in the shape of Peyton Manning. But watch out, those stocks are way weaker than you might expect. Set your lineups. I'll see you next week.